News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Unbelievable, horrifying numbers that Joe and Kamala have let into our country that are murderers, rapists, convicted felons, convicted criminals roaming the streets across America. Untold numbers. This came out after, on the same time and day, a little earlier, before Kamala came out and gave her big border speech today, which is saying how tough she will be on the border and prosecutor and all this kind of stuff, which is completely factually totally incorrect, as evidenced by, I have two montages I'll play for you that are radically anti-ICE, anti-border wall, anti-detentions, anti-detention beds, and that leads to what we have here. We have almost 500,000 illegals that are criminals, convicted criminals, roaming our streets, according to ICE. This was requested by Texas Border Congressman Tony Gonzalez, and it took 6 months for ICE to give him these numbers. They knew what they were. They just chose to wait till today. He received it today, and he immediately disseminated it today. The numbers are horrifying and disgusting and terrifying, really, to folks who are worried about illegals raping them and killing them. Look at this. The numbers are as such. These are of the non-detained illegals. They've been set free to roam as they await to be deported or for their hearing. And of them, caught and released that are not in detention by ICE, 425,000 convicted criminals are roaming our streets. An additional 222,000 with pending criminal charges. That literally comes to a total of 647,000 that are either convicted criminals or pending criminal charges that have been arrested and are walking free. There are 60 of these, more than 500,000 illegals. We'll just leave the 425 convicted criminals that are illegals. Of the 425,000 roaming around, 62,000 are convicted of assault, 14,000 convicted of burglary, 56,000 with drug convictions, 13,000 illegals set free by Joe and Kamala roaming the streets that have been convicted of homicide. 13,000 murderers that are illegal are roaming your streets and my streets right now because of Joe and Kamala. Another 2,500 have kidnapping convictions. These are not charges. They're convicted of kidnapping and homicide. And then 15,000 have sexual assault convictions. It's 15,800, so that really is 16,000. 16,000 rapists are roaming our streets free, and they're illegals. Do you understand this? 13,000 murders, 16,000 rapists, 2,500 kidnappers, and 6,200 convicted of assault. This is 6,662 non-citizen with criminal histories on ICE's national docket. In other words, they're waiting deportation, but they haven't been deported, and they're roaming our streets free. 662,000. Do you understand this? These of them, 13,100 are murderers, convicted murderers. They are roaming our streets. Do the math. It's insane. It's horrifying. And that's why so many illegals are murdering us, raping us, robbing us, beating us, and doing untoward, unspeakable things to our people. And this is part of Joe and Kamala's invasion. Today, the report from ICE is 10,000 illegals that have been stamped and allowed to come in as a potential, asylum or whatever. They're just letting them in. As you know, the spigot's wide open. 10 million plus 2 million gotaways. These are terrorists, rapists, murderers, etc. You can add those 2 million to the 622,000 convicts that are roaming our streets. Now compare 12 million under Joe and Kamala to 2.5 million under Trump. Look at that. 12 million to 2.5 million under Trump for 4 years. Do you see the numbers here? Do you see what this is? Almost 5 times more illegals have flooded our country with the wide open spigot, including 622,000 criminals and 13,000 murders and 15,000 sexual assaulters. This is Kamala and Joe. So I want to ask you, who do you blame for this? And how unsafe does this make you and your family feel? And how does this affect who you're voting for president? Does this change your vote in any way? Do you agree with Mark Cuban as he defended Kamala? I played this for you yesterday. It's not her fault. Joe Biden made her have these wide open borders, even though he put her in charge of the border. Is she complicit in this? Do you feel Kamala's complicit in this? And how does this look coming out on the same day that she does a speech at the border pretending she's tough on illegal immigration? Well, let's hear our number. Line's wide open. Chime in right now. We got a lot of time to take you on the air, 4 or 5 minutes. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now, 800-288-WBAP. Who do you blame? How unsafe does this make you feel? And how does this affect your vote for president? And do you agree with Cuban that it really isn't her fault? Mark Cuban, she was made to do this. It was Joe made her do this with his policies. And how does this look coming out on the same day she does the speech at the border pretending she's tough? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Let's listen to Kamala and what she has said over the years about illegal immigration in 2019 and 2020. Let's hear what she says. Hold on. That's her cheering and chanting, leading a parade of down with deportation.
I think there's no question that we've got to critically re-examine ICE. We're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminal. This administration has decided to vilify them and to trade on them for the sake of this president's medieval vanity project called a wall.
Would you be committing to close immigration detention centers?
Absolutely, on day one.
They have pledged to carry out the largest deportation, a mass deportation in American history. What are they talking about?
So did you notice she said that she wants to shut down all ICE detention facilities on day one? That jibes with what she's already done. She has allowed 622 illegals with criminal history to roam free in our country. And she wants to shut down all detention facilities, which means you'd probably have, close to 1 million people that are criminals instead of 662,000. This is what she and Joe Biden have done. And on Fox News this afternoon, they said that means about 5% of all the illegals that have invaded us are criminals. 5%. 1 in 20. Are you comfortable with these numbers? Are you comfortable with 662,000 criminals, including 13,000 murders and 16,000 sexual assault convictions that are illegals roaming your streets and my streets? Do you feel safe with that? Would you take these people as your neighbor? Would you mind if they lived down the street from you in an apartment complex that might be, a quarter of a mile or 5 blocks down from your house? Do you feel these are great contributors to society? Maybe a murderer who's convicted of it or a rapist has something good to offer? Do you agree with Kamala when she says she wants to shut down the border? The detention facilities? Here's more of what she said.
Folks have plenty enough problems that they need their president to focus on instead of a wall. This whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
We're going to have 2 million people cross this border for the first time ever. You're confident this border's secure?
We have a secure border. My value around what we need to do to secure our border, that value has not changed.
She's right. We have a secure border. That's why we have 662,000 convicted criminals that are illegals roaming our streets. 13,000 murderers and 16,000 sexual assaulters that are illegal, just roaming the streets all over this state and our states across the country. They're raping people. They're killing people. They're murdering them. They're They're holding them. They're stealing their cars and beating them. Well, we're gonna go over the history of what Kamala and Joe have done in 3.5, almost 4 years, and I'm going to give you the what you have is a unbelievable number of people on the non-detained docket, meaning they're awaiting to be kicked out of this country, and they're not being detained, roaming our streets. It's disgusting, and you can't have a country like this. You can't have a country that'll survive. And by the way, Kamala would this bill she keeps pretending would have been passed. The Senate would not have passed it. They did not have the votes to pass it in the Senate, so it never was going to happen. Trump wasn't the reason. Part of the bill that she wants would allow 2 million illegals per year into this country. 2 million per year. So in 4 years, it'd be 8 million illegals. Do you understand that? Trump let in 2.5 in 4 years. She would let in 8 in 4 years with her plan that she says is the solution. You see this? It's a joke. It's a disgrace, and it's an insult to your intelligence and to our intelligence and to our safety. The bill would increase the number of detention beds, supposedly, right? But guess what? Their beds are empty. They're not detaining people. Their beds are empty. They have tons of empty bed all across this country for ICE. And they're saying, well, look, we want to build more beds. For what? They're not detaining them. They're letting them free. Even the rapists and the murderers. Who do you blame for this? How unsafe does this make you feel? And does this change your vote and who you're going to vote for president? I don't know how you could vote for Kamala with this. This is her. And how does this look coming out on the same day she's having her big border appearance? Is she shepherding in the murderers and rapists? Is she somehow making sure Secret Service is protecting her from getting murdered and rapists while welcoming these people? I'm going to give you the details, though, because it's real stunning when you go through the specific, simple, quick policies that she and Joe stripped down. And it's the exact reason why you have almost exactly 5 times more illegals in 3.5 years than Trump had in 4 years. That is next. Plus your call, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. And Jason Jones, the amazing former Newsmax the amazing former head of DPS border operations and counterintelligence and counterterrorism. He is now a Newsmax border correspondent, and he and I were texting again today, and I'm telling you, he's going to unload on. We're going to have some really scary stuff he's going to share with us. All right, chime in right now, 800-288-WBAP. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 662,000 convicted criminals that are illegals are roaming the streets because Kamala and Joe stamped them and let them in. And one of the big reasons Tom Homan, former head of ICE under Trump, and hopefully he'll be head of ICE again come January 20, he said today that via phone, this news broke, he said, talking about this, I took my notes on it. It was just unbelievable as this broke today in the middle of the day. He said the 2.2 million gotaways, they have no way of checking. Most countries like El Salvador, Honduras, and China, so they have no way of knowing if they're wanted criminals or murderers. And that's why they find out now, because they let them in here. Joe and Kamala stamp them in, and they go, oh no, they're convicted of murdering. They're convicted of raping. And in 2019, Kamala wanted to get rid of all the ICE detainers. I played you that audio, and guess what? That's exactly what Massachusetts did. And guess what just happened in like a week or two? 4 separate illegals within 1 week. 4 separate illegals on just that tiny little Nantucket Island in Massachusetts. 4 illegals that Joe and Kamala have let in. All 4 of them raped a child and or an adult. 4 separate rapists from El Salvador, and the other one was Honduras, I think. And one or two raped a child, 1 or 2 raped adults on that little Massachusetts island. And they set them free when they were waiting trial because Massachusetts is a sanctuary state. Kamala Harris wants sanctuary cities. She supports them. She was the original sanctuary city in San Diego. And Tim Walz, as the governor of Minnesota, has endorsed and tried to push through, wants to push through making it a sanctuary state. So these kind of things will go on there, and it'll be national. These are who these radical leftists are. So my question is, who do you blame for this? 425,000 non-citizens convicted of a crime roaming our streets. Those are illegals. 13,000 illegals roaming our streets convicted of murder that were let out by Kamala and Joe. 15,811 non-citizens convicted of sexual assault. We'll just put that at 16,000. 1,900 pending homicide charges. 4,200 pending sexual assault charges. And it's stunning, isn't it? So, and I'm going to repeat something. Kamala wants to get rid of all ICE detainers so that the people that rape us, like in Nantucket, will be free to roam the streets. ICE doesn't get any help. They don't get any notification. They find out, and they have to investigate after the illegal's been freed and is on the lam. That's what they raised hell about when they went and got these guys. But they had to investigate and track them down instead of just getting a call saying, "Hey, they're in prison for rape. Can you come pick them up?" Which is what Trump does, not them, not Kamala. So, by the way, of the asylum people that Kamala is giving, like 10 million of them, Kamala and Joe's illegals, of them, 90% are sent home. They're sent back. But guess what? Only 6% of them leave. So 90% of every asylum seeker is denied and only 6% leaves. What does that mean? 84% of asylum seekers remain here like Kamala and Joe want to become citizens so they can vote for them. Kamala compared ICE to the KKK 4 or 5 years ago, and in an open Senate hearing publicly on television. She also attacked the mounted border patrols of illegals when those Haitian illegals were going after the horseback Mounties, and she lied and said they were racist and that they whipped those Haitians. It was a lie. She's never apologized. She hates the Border Patrol. She thinks they're KKK, and she seeks to dismantle them, and she seeks to not detain these criminals who are raping and murdering us. That's who she is. Today she tells you something else. Like she said, my values haven't changed. What do you think? Who do you blame for this? How unsafe does it make you feel? And does this change your vote on who you're voting for president? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Lines wide open. Chime in right now. So, by the way, there are usually, this is stunning, in the county that Kamala went to today in Arizona at the border of that county, there were 200,000 interdictions in Trump's 4 years there. 200,000. Under Kamala and Joe, 1.2 million. There's your difference. 200,000 interdictions at this part of the border, the county there that Kamala's at today. 200,000 under Trump, 1.2 million under her and Joe, and we still haven't even hit the 4-year mark unlike Trump. So you see that? See what this is? This is a massive invasion that she wants. She brought in. These are all her murdering and raping illegals, all of them. And ICE used to pick up. Listen to this from former ICE head Tom Holman. ICE used to pick up 8 out of 10 detainers. Where they have detainers, they're holding them in prison, saying they're illegal. 8 out of 10 ICE would get. Now they no longer pick up any of them. That's what they do with Kamala and Joe. They are raping us, murdering us, destroying us, robbing us, and beating us. And honestly, maybe they're kicking you to the curb and beating you and robbing you and taking away your vote and your jobs and your rights. And you keep voting for this. If you do, that just doesn't make any sense to me. It makes me go, what the heck's wrong with you? I mean, do you want this? Do you want to end our country? Because that's what this is doing. That's what this is doing. Now, if you think I'm exaggerating, if you think I'm apoplectic, the man who just put together the border policy that was put in effect by Governor Abbott is the former head of DPS, Border Operations, Counterterrorism, Counterintelligence, and his name is Jason Jones. He's now a Newsmax border correspondent. He was asked out of retirement to help craft the policy that Governor Abbott just unveiled, and he has been telling us, and he told me just the other day before these numbers came out, that tens of thousands of trained Nicaragua people are in this country now because they were never here 2 years ago. Tens of thousands. That means 20, 30,000 of the worst gang that is on this side of the Western Hemisphere that's in 5 countries, and now our country is 6th. And they're here to stay, and Joe and Kamala did this, and she pretends she's a border prosecutor. My butt. Okay, we'll talk to Jason next on News Talk 820 WBAP and now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number.
There are consequential issues at stake in this election, and one is the security of our border. The United States is a sovereign nation, and I believe we have a duty to set rules at our border and to enforce them. And I take that responsibility very seriously.
Wow, she is very serious about protecting our border and us being a sovereign nation. Is that why she allowed in, she and Joe Biden allowed in less than 4 years, 425,000 illegals convicted of a crime? They're roaming our streets. Over 13,000 illegals convicted of murder roaming our streets. Over 16,000, almost 16,000 illegals roaming our streets convicted of sexual assault. Almost 2,000 have pending homicide charges, which would bring it to 15,000 murderers walking around, and 4,250 are awaiting pending sexual assault charges. That would bring the total to 18,250 sexual assaulters that are illegal roaming our streets. plus 2.2 million gotaways. We have no idea of knowing where or who these people are. Over 600,000 people are on ICE non-detained docket like Kamala wants it. No detentions. Of those, 425 convicted of crimes, 222,000 pending convictions. And Kamala wanted to get rid of the ICE detainers. Therefore, none of these illegal criminals would be held, which is what's going on with these people I'm mentioning. Like in Nantucket, where 4 people have raped in the past week, been arrested for raping children and adults on little old Nantucket Island, where they aren't detained. This is an all-out invasion. She compared the KKK to ICE, ICE to the KKK. And lied about the mounted border patrols and said they're racist and they were whipping Haitians when they weren't. I have to set that up to talk to our Newsmax border correspondent and retired captain with DPS, head of border operations, counterintelligence, and counterterrorism, the inimitable Jason Jones, which it's always incredible to speak to you, sir. And it's a real treat to get to talk to you, a real pleasure to get to talk to you tonight, because this is insane, my friend. And your response to this was very telling. And go ahead and say it. Or you want me I can read it. Your response was let's see here. It was, I always said in due time the truth would be revealed, and this is just the beginning. Talk to us.
Well, Chris, it's always good to be with you, buddy. And the veil of what you and I have been talking about on your show for the last 3.5 years is finally being revealed. And it's a real testament to what the federal government has been allowed to get away with and hide from the American people, because this is hard data. Look, I knew this was out there and that eventually this would be illuminated to the American people. And for the first time, we are really finally beginning to see the impacts of this open border policies. And look, I'm going to say it again. This is just the beginning. But what was the last thing I said on your show? That we are in a new era. Yes. And that new era is that we are in a public safety crisis, Chris, the likes of which this country has never seen. And when I look down and realize that we are losing 100,000 American citizens year after year, for 3 years in a row, over 100,000 Americans to fentanyl. And then you look here on this form and it says dangerous drugs convicted, non-citizen, as they call them, illegal aliens is a real term, 56,533 walking our streets. That's exactly why our country is running unprecedented numbers and families are hurting from losing loved ones. Never mind that some of the numbers you just gave, robbers. My God, we've got 13,000 murderers convicted walking our streets, and they know it, and they haven't said anything about it.
What does that tell us? I mean, what does that tell you? I mean, what does that tell you? What does that say? Well, why are they doing that? Why are they allowing this to happen? And why are they not saying anything, you think?
Cowardice. I'll just be very frank. If you're a leader in the federal law enforcement agencies and you're in the SES positions, you should be fired. And I truly mean that. I'm angry. I travel the country and I listen to these moms and these dads who have lost their children. I'm with the families of lost voices of fentanyl. I go to the border and I listen to our ranchers who have felt absolutely abandoned by our government. And we have heard nothing from the leadership. And as you know, and I've tried to stay out of politics as much as I can. I've always said that. Right. But I definitely hold the Homeland Security enterprise and those people who raised their hand and took an oath to the Constitution and to the protection of the citizens of this country. This data right here validates the level of failure and scope. And I will say it again. This is just the beginning. If Trump gets in and we get a whole new administration, get ready. The classified and unclassified law enforcement sensitive reporting of what has been crossing that border and what DHS really knows. Get ready, America.
In other words, just the beginning. In other words, the information that he would release if he wins presidency in November will be insanely terrifying, I guess, or whatever. Insanely.
Absolutely. Look, from the spies, the over 100,000 Chinese that have crossed that southern border, what the cartels have become in Mexico. I mean, get ready. The threat streams that they have been briefed on by the U.S. intelligence agencies. This is hard data. And I'll tell you something. I don't care what you feel, what you think, what you wish. Data matters, and data drives everything I do. And I learned that in government work. And this is hard data from the federal government and from the men and women who are out there picking these people up and chasing them, showing what ICE has been up against. when you look at these numbers, and I've got them all laid out here, and you look at the number of robbers and thefts and, my God, sex offenders, of people who shouldn't even be in the country, 15,811 people who committed sexual assaults walking our streets who shouldn't be in the country. No wonder we hear from so many mothers and fathers, Chris, who are just destroyed from their children being killed or sexually assaulted or both.
Jason, is this a choice? Because I see that the policy decisions of Kamala and Biden, they allowed, in the first week, they canceled Title 42, which would expel border crossers. The next month, they killed Remain in Mexico, which makes the illegals trying to come in with asylum await their hearings on the other side of the border in Mexico. They stopped requiring all illegals to seek asylum in countries they cross en route to the U.S. They dropped all those policies. Was this a choice to have this massive invasion of including now criminals, rapists, and murderers convicted, and robbers and all sorts of stuff?
Yes. Now, let me validate it even further. Remember what they did also. They created exemptions for unaccompanied children, which drove the massive wave of what we got now of over 300,000 unaccompanied alien children in this country that they can't locate. Second, they created exemptions for family units, right? So then what do we have? We had the cartels at the border separating children from their families and giving them the single males, single females so that they could come in.
Yes.
And then those kids being lost. Then what did they do? They created exemptions for single males, single females, and then country after country after country. And then, Chris, when that wasn't enough, they created the very first parallel immigration system we've ever seen in this country's history, the CBP 1 out, which, by the way, was never passed by Congress, was never passed by the Senate, and was not passed by the White House. This was something the DHS did on their own, created an app, and what are they doing? At all taxpayers' expense, flying these people in from 4 major different countries, over 100,000 in just the last year alone, and then letting them walk across our southern border at designated ports of entry.
And Jason, there are also many of a good amount of them are raping and murdering. 3 Haitians have been arrested in the Boston, Massachusetts area for raping a girl, a minor girl, for raping a developmentally disabled woman. And I think there was a third, all from Haiti, that Joe and Kamala flew in direct on our dime to rape our children and or to rape our women and children. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, but there's a whole nother layer to this. What are you told as Americans every day? Oh, crime is down. But crime is down. What they never tell you is how the National Incident-Based Reporting System, which is the newer system, and the older Uniform Crime Reporting System doesn't capture transnational crime. They also don't tell you about the 200 cities that are designated as sanctuary cities, the 600 counties across this country, which adds up to about 32 states now that are sanctuary. So even with this data right here that we have, which is just stunning, it is still a very small snippet of what really is going on across this country. Because don't forget, these sanctuary cities and these sanctuary counties and these states, they're not providing the data. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm getting at?
Yep.
So, look, when you go to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and for anyone listening, don't take my word for it. Look at the data. If you include the 2 million known gotaways under this administration, we're at 12.5 million hard numbers that you can count, never mind the ones we have no clue about. And this is why I will say it again and again. Everything will change in the next decade between how local, state, and federal law enforcement operate as a direct result of the public safety crisis we're now in.
Jason, I want to hear how everything is going to change, and I want to hear what's next with just the beginning. This unprecedented importation of millions of illegals and criminals with them. What's the next point? Because just the beginning, we see all these tens of thousands of murderers and rapists are in our streets walking free. But what's the next part? We see tens of thousands of Trinidad Agua, what I call, and it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on this, the worst gang in this side of the Western Hemisphere, on this side of the hemisphere, unless you would know if there's more that are worse. But and then what's the end with this? Where does this end in 5, 10, 15 years? I mean, I can't imagine. So I want to ask you about that coming up next, sir, okay?
You got it. Sounds good.
Thank you. I assume you can give a few more minutes with us?
You bet. Absolutely.
Thank you, friend. Stand by. There's Jason Jones, a former DPS captain, head of border operations and counterintelligence and counterterrorism for the border. Did help craft Governor Abbott's recent policy enacted to go after Tren de Aragua, and is a current active Newsmax border correspondent. He is such a blessing to that network, I'll tell you that. We'll continue with Jason coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. Our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227.
And as president, I will work with Congress to create, at long last, a pathway to citizenship for hardworking immigrants who have been here for years. For years.
Yes, they've been here for, 4 years under Kamala and Joe. They could be one of the 600,000 rapists, murderers, convicts that are roaming our streets that they let in, stamped, and just let roam, even though they're awaiting deportation. Jason Jones, Newsmax border correspondent, former head of border operations with Texas DPS and counterterrorism, counterintelligence. Thank you, my friend, for joining us for some more time here on the show tonight in this perilous time that we're finding out this horrible information that you already knew, but the data confirms everything you've been telling us, right?
Well, we knew it was going to be bad, but, I didn't have access to this database. And so to see it and to just be sitting here looking at these numbers and then to see what we see every day now, another child sexually assaulted by someone who's illegally in their country, another family destroyed because their wife or their loved one is murdered. I mean, it's just, you got to remember when it comes to these crimes, Chris, these are crimes that should have never occurred. These people are not supposed to be here. And we're talking about hardened criminals now, and we have the data that validates it, when all Americans have been lied to for how many years? Think about this. This goes back, if you really think about it, way before the Biden-Harris administration. We've been lied to for so long that these people who are coming just want a better life, and you Americans, you are the problem. You commit more crimes than they do. Well, when you're looking at this data right here, it is stunning. And I'll say it again, this is just the beginning of what's coming.
Jason Jones, the Border Patrol Union just released a statement. They released a couple of damning statements to her. One earlier was, after years of not just ignoring the problem, but helping create it, Vice President Kamala Harris is finally headed down to the border. This is nothing more than for her to check the box, but what is in reality a slap in the face towards the men and women that put their lives on the line every day, and also slap in the face to the American public. Where has she been? That's Art Del Cueto, VP, National Border Patrol Council. They just tweeted out moments ago, Vice President Harris has ignored the border problem she created for over 3 years. She goes down there for 20 minutes for a photo op, decides to repeat some of the things the Border Patrol has said before. And again, where has she been the last 3.5 years? Is that accurate from your perch, sir?
Absolutely, and I think any reasonable and prudent person listening knows that it is.
So, Jason, you were telling me that just the other day, tens of thousands of Tren de Aragua gang members in from Venezuela. Let me ask you real quickly. They have, Trump talks about how they've emptied their prisons. My understanding is Tren de Aragua is a gang that was created in the prisons in Venezuela, in the state of Aragua, and the governor allows them to run their own prison, which is insane. And then as they get out, they are being released into the United States, and their murder rate has dropped to the lowest in 20 years, according to Bloomberg News. Is that accurate in your perspective? And then, are they the most dangerous gang this side of the Western Hemisphere? I mean, that's what it seems like to me.
Well, I will tell you, in Central and South America, I think that there's a lot of truth to that. They've taken on some of the paramilitary organizations down in Colombia, so they have strong roots there, Chris. And that's my whole thing here about why the federal government needs to be doing more and held accountable for the lack of doing anything. We should be seeing daily bust outs about what the FBI, DEA, HSI leadership, U.S. Marshals, the whole gamut of them, are doing to go after them. And the reason that's important for the listener right now is because right here in our country, they don't have a stronghold. They're new here. They're trying to find their place, just like MS-13 did when they first started crossing back in 2001 to 2004. But if we continue to wait every single day, they're working with Sureños and other gangs, and they will start to work more closely with them, gain their roots, find their place, where right now even U.S.-based street gangs don't want them in their backyard because they're moving in on their territory. But every day we wait, they will assimilate. And I'll tell you right now, most likely it will be Sureños with whom they will start working with. So to me right now in the United States, they're low-hanging fruit. It's really easy stuff.
That's why I've been saying we are low-hanging fruit. We're low-hanging because we're wealthy and we're not used to this. We're not looking around like they're about to get us. So we're easy pickings for them compared to Venezuela, where they're dead broke and nobody's got anything to rob.
Well, if we had leadership right now, and I don't mean even in the White House, I'm talking among the Homeland Security enterprise, those whose job it is to keep us safe, if they would lead instead of sit back and hide from the nation and talk to us about what they're doing, what we're dealing with, and be open and honest. Look, you win with transparency. The more you show it, the more money you're going to get to be able to go after it and fix the problem. We want to be safe as Americans, and what the government has done to us is absolutely, this is something that will be talked about in the history books. But now with all the bad, now let me flip that around. To those listening, don't let anyone tell you that we can't fix this. I'm not saying there's not going to be a lot of bad that comes with it, but I want you to all know without any hesitation, this is absolutely fixable.
Jason, you told me this is just the beginning with all this invasion with these criminals. What's the next point of this as far as bad news, and what's the end as far as bad news, where this is all heading? And we only have 45 seconds. Go.
Sure. What you're going to hear from most in the Homeland Security enterprises are worried about the big hit. They're worried about the big hit from a terrorist organization. Well, look, to me, it's a big hit when someone knocks on your door and tells you the person you love the most in the world is never coming home. I can say that because I've been that guy that watches you fall apart in front of you, and you're never changed. I mean, you'll be forever changed. You'll never be the same again. So those are big hits. And when I look at this data, this is what concerns me. But I will say this, and I mean it. All we have to do, we are set very well here in Texas, and I give a lot of credit to Governor Abbott. I give a lot of credit to Steve McCraw, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and here's why. They have already created the anti-gang centers, 9 of them across the state. They've already created synergy to focus on transnational crime. So they've already started the programs. You saw the governor a little over a week ago designate Tren de Aragua as a foreign terrorist organization. What that means for all of the listeners is the intel collection between 2,600 plus law enforcement agencies in the state of Texas, working with regional and the State Fusion Center, are collecting on Tren de Aragua so that they can do these enterprise bust-out investigations like I'm talking about to you.
Jason.
So we're sitting here pretty good, but at the federal level, they are not ready for what's happening, and the transnational impact is the one that I have always talked to you about that concerns me the most.
Jason Jones, border correspondent, Newsmax, and former head of border operations, counterintelligence, counterterrorism. You are an amazing person to have on this show. We thank you very much for your time. Have a wonderful weekend.
God bless you, buddy. Thanks
God bless you, friend. Thank you. All right, up next, Texas Supreme Court rules against Ken Paxton. Guns are banned at the state fair. That is next.